Welcome back for another helping of oysters, clams, and clickers presented by Bolin Media. I am Ross Bolin, here today with producer Kade Orris, as Barrett has abandoned me and fled to Mexico. My wife had a baby 2 weeks ago, and I haven't missed an episode, but Barrett saw one of those headlines about the fungus only being a few steps away from making The Last of Us a reality, and he hightailed it to Mexico without me mid-season. It's fine. Fortunately, I have replaced him with a much younger and beefier boy. The lad who produces the video for every episode of OCC, Kade Orris, who will be chiming in on occasion today. Kade, how tall are you?
I am listed at 6'3".
And how much do you weigh?
Probably a little over 200. I haven't weighed myself in a while. I'm kind of nervous to check the scale. I think I might be bloater weight.
Okay.
At this point, so
roughly twice the size of Barrett. Yeah. So frankly, I feel safer today than I normally would. We will survive. Hell, we might even endure. Today we are here to digest and discuss episode 6 of HBO's The Last of Us. The episode is titled Kin, which means like family. Yeah. Dom Toretto would love the title of this
Absolutely.
One. Episode 6 starts with us once again watching Henry melt down just before he commits suicide. I think as a reminder of just how much trauma these two, Joel and Ellie, have accumulated already.
Yeah, and just in case we didn't want to forget about it either, they had to remind the audience as well of that horribly traumatic experience.
We saw it, how before the episode it's previously on The Last of Us. It doesn't say that anymore. It used to back in the day on HBO, but we had already seen the scene. So I don't know why they had to reiterate it, but later in the episode, we do see the physical effect of all this stress and trauma on Joel's body and mind. And that's the only real reason I can come up with in my sleep-deprived state to have us watch this scene again. But yeah. Then after reliving that one scene of Henry putting a gun to his head, we jump forward 3 months to Joel and Ellie holding up a nice 1,000-year-old couple, as Ellie puts it, in their cabin. So Joel and Ellie have been working their way toward Wyoming, remember where they think that Tommy is, for 3 months since we last saw them. And this couple they're holding up is like a jolly old wife who made them some soup.
Yeah, she's super sweet, while being held hostage.
Yeah.
So, making them soup and stuff.
They keep saying, holy, which I'm not sure what that's about. But this comical couple moved out to this cabin before Joel was even born, they say, regardless of the fact that, we don't know anything about these two. We just come upon them here. And you would have expected that they would have moved to the cabin after the outbreak, right? After Outbreak Day, that they got out to the middle of nowhere in nature. But no. The older gentleman in the cabin tells Joel that he has been out there since before he was born. He also tells them not to go west, to go east, and to never go past the River of Death, as it comes to be known, that's out west. This couple has never actually seen what's out there, but they say that they've seen the bodies they leave behind. Some infected, some not.
Which, when they get to the River of Death, not much death at that river.
It's pretty confusing, yeah. It seems like, we'll get to it in a second, but the lady says if your brother is west of the river, he's gone. So it's pretty foreboding for Joel. You can tell he's not super stoked when he's leaving this place on how that conversation went.
Yeah, no, it didn't scare Ellie, but it definitely scared Joel when he heard that.
I think this whole thing right here, and what you just mentioned, the fact that when they get to the River of Death, there is not much death, it's just a testament to how well the people of Jackson have done in keeping their settlement a secret and scaring anybody nearby from coming out there and trying them, right? We find out a little bit more later in the episode, but it sounds like pretty much any infected they came across or any, outsiders that they saw as the wrong people who tried to either attack them or enter their settlement, or the raiders that may have come and gone, they were probably setting their corpses up in a way out there by the River of Death that got anyone who came even close to be incredibly afraid of what they were approaching, right?
Yeah.
Tactics. On the way off the 1,000-year-old couple's property, Ellie steals one of their rabbits, and then Joel has the first of, I think, a few different, what I'm going to describe as a panic attack.
Yeah, that's what I kind of assumed it was. That's what it looked like to me, yeah.
Because at first you're like, oh, shit, this old man is having a heart attack. He's going to croak right here. But that's sort of one of the ironic things about the way this plays out is when you're having a panic attack, as somebody who's had quite a few of them in my life, probably upwards of 500. You do think you're dying, and oftentimes people self-diagnose that they are having a heart attack. Like at one point, I actually went to the hospital because I thought I was having a heart attack, and then they did an EKG on me, which I think cost $1,000, and they were like, "You're fine, dumbass." They didn't call me a dumbass, but
they were thinking,
yeah. But yeah, Ellie asks if he's dying and reminds him that if he dies, she's fucked. Her words, not mine. And he kind of pulls himself together, and then they head out to find Tommy and the Fireflies, which, again, Ellie's words, not mine, is going to be easy. All they have to do is cross the river of death, she says. And again, ironically, it does end up being fairly easy. Like, they encounter almost nothing along the way. They camp out for the night, though, before crossing this first river that they thought was the river of death. And Joel has to tape the soles of his boots because they're falling apart. They're by a campfire. Ellie asks Joel for a hit of his flask, and he says no, and she says, "What? It's just to warm up," and he passes it to her. Pretty easy to get that thing out of his hands, it turns out, probably triggering alcoholism that she'll fight for the rest of her life.
See, okay, so originally, I thought it was like alcohol in the flask, but then I thought it was coffee because she said it still tastes gross.
Still gross.
So yeah, I don't know why he would give Ellie alcohol when she's 14.
Here's the thing, though. I think the implication was that because he wouldn't be drinking coffee at night. Well, maybe because he was trying to stay up for both shifts.
Yeah.
Huh. It's possible. But I thought the implication was that Ellie has tried alcohol before, probably back in Fedra school, which we'll get to next week. And that it was still, that's why she said, like, still gross. But I guess it could go either way.
Yeah, so, like, I'm still kind of confused on it because they never, like, specifically say, but at first, I did think it was alcohol, but then she said it was gross. So I just kind of assumed that she was referring to the coffee because she didn't like the smell of it in episode.
You just have to be one hell of a caffeine addict to keep coffee in a flask.
Right.
That's a sick move. Ellie asks Joel, if all this works, if they use her blood and they make a cure, and then you could go out and do anything you want, anywhere you want, what would you do? And Joel says he wants an old farmhouse, a ranch, and he wants to be a sheep farmer, basically. Ellie, I think the takeaway was that she wants to be an astronaut.
Yeah, I
think civilization's probably a few hundred years off.
We're not going to the moon anytime soon again.
We're going back to space.
I don't think they got NASA up and running again.
Yeah, she wants to be like her favorite astronaut, Sally Ride. But again, that doesn't seem...
Great fucking name.
It is a great name, but it doesn't seem likely anytime soon. So might be a bit of a hardcore pipe dream there for Ellie.
Also noted, like Ellie says, like, what are we gonna do? And then Joel is quick to say, like, we, like he wants to get rid of her, like, still, like, as quickly as possible. It seems like
you would have thought after a few months that they would have been bonded a lot closer. And there are moments when it seems like they are, and then there are moments like this one where he's very quick to say, like, oh, it's us now? Like, both, you think we're going to stick together? And she's like, fine, you. What are you going to do, right? And I think that all has to do with just, like, it's not necessarily a fear of abandonment that Joel has. It's a fear of intimacy, right? Like, since he lost Sarah, he's not really willing to open himself back up to the kind of relationship that he had with his daughter or anybody pre-outbreak, I think.
Yeah, he's scared to, like, grow attachment to someone. And like he kind of did with Tess a little bit.
Yep, definitely worsened it when when he lost Tess. And I think that plays a huge factor in his character, the whole series so far, really, but especially post-outbreak. And, I guess we'll talk about whether or not we'll see him moving forward. But Ellie expresses her doubts over whether or not the vaccine will work, specifically because she rubbed some of her blood on Sam's bite. And that did not save him, right? I actually had somebody on, I can't remember if it was Instagram or TikTok, in the comments point out that I'm sorry that she left on Sam's grave could have actually been written by Sam. And I was like, oh, shit, I didn't really think about that. But I still think it was her apologizing to him for her blood not working, right? But theoretically.
It could have been Sam, too, that wrote that. Yeah.
Same way that it could have been coffee or alcohol, I guess. Joel reckons that it is a lot more complicated than just rubbing your blood on someone. And he says that Marlene is no fool. And if she says they can make a vaccine out of Ellie's blood, then they can make a vaccine out of Ellie's blood. He's pretty confident that Marlene, the head of the Fireflies back in the Boston QZ, knows what she's talking about, and that this is all going to pan out and work out, or at least, for a guy who's seemingly incapable of attachment to the other human beings, doesn't have a lot of emotion to him, he does have this layer of optimism about Ellie's potential as far as a cure goes. Joel tells Ellie he's going to take first and second watch, which I'll say is the only thing that contributes to your coffee theory, and then so she can sleep tonight. But then, unlike in episode 4 when they go camping, he passes out. And he wakes up to Ellie having taken second watch on his behalf because she woke up and found him sleeping, right? It's just another sign that Joel's body and mind are beginning to decline, which is one of the main themes of this episode for sure, right?
Yeah. And I also noticed again, he slept on his right ear, which is the one he can hear out of. So he's still he might start with his left side,
but he's rolling
over to the right side again. So you probably didn't even hear Ellie when she grabbed the gun.
Yeah, that was one of the things that when I was questioning why his glass trap didn't work when Henry and Sam came upon Ellie and Joel, multiple people, again, on comments on the social mediums, explained that in his sleep he had rolled over onto his good ear so that he could not hear.
He needs to do the old when you're too drunk trick where you put a backpack on the person, filled with books or whatever,
so they can't roll onto their back.
Yeah, that's what Joel needs to start doing.
Yeah. Joel and Ellie cross the alleged river of death on a bridge as foreboding music plays, but absolutely nothing happens. It's just I don't really know what the message was here with the whole river
fire
thing.
Up a shot too to just see
just to see.
Yeah, and then
if there'll be any movement, right, outside of birds, there's nothing. They got nothing.
Yeah.
So then they walk up to a dam, which triggers Ellie's dam joke, which leads Joel to proclaim that she is no Will Livingston, author of No Pun Intended, Volume 2, TOO. And Ellie replies, yeah, but who is? Nobody's Will
literally
Livingston.
No one is. It's not even a real person.
Not a real person. Then when they're about to cross the next river, Ellie has this moment of clarity where she's like, oh, snap, what if this is the river of death? And you see Joel have this massive internal freak out. He takes out the map and he's looking at it like, fuck, she's right. This is definitely the river that guy was referring to. And immediately a shit ton of people ride up on horses with bandanas over their faces like bandits in an old Western. And they are surrounded, Joel and Ellie. Then they bust out this infection-smelling dog that, first of all, I have questions about this dog. Because, bomb-sniffing dogs, drug-sniffing dogs, I get it. You get a bomb, or, the components of a bomb, or gunpowder, or whatever, and you have the dog smell that enough times to where you've trained that dog to know this scent and seek it out, right? You reward it when it smells that stuff versus nothing, and slowly over time you're able to train the canine to sniff out a bomb or ammunition, guns, drugs, what have you, which we're all familiar with. Sometimes you'll be going through the airport and they'll have one of those dogs. And I love that it has to wear a sign that says, please do not pet or whatever, because so many morons are like, I'll just pet the bomb-sniffing dog.
Right.
But this dog, it's what did they do?
I think, so a couple of things.
Yeah.
So you remember in episode 1 with the dog that knew that Nana Adler was kind of there was something off with her?
Oh, yeah. So, great point.
I mean, I think there's something that has to do with that. And then I also think, they probably killed a bunch of infected people, so they probably just bring the dog out, have them sniff them.
To the flesh, right? Yeah, the rotting fungi
they might be
flesh.
able to smell that something's cooking in there. I don't know.
Good point. Definitely seemed like just off of instinct alone, the dog with Nana Adler in episode 1 had some level of, he was able to identify something was wrong with her, right? But on top of that, they've been killing any infected that come out there near their settlement in Jackson, and they could just use the rotting fungi corpse as a thing they let the dog train with or whatever. So they've got this infection-smelling dog that approves of Joel before creating an insanely tense moment with Ellie where you think where everybody watching is oh shit, is it going to attack her? Because she technically, she has been bitten. She does have some level of this virus somewhere. It's just, she's immune to it, right? So, scary moment, but the dog growls at her, and then they end up like cuddling on the ground together while she giggles.
Yeah, I guess the dog like really didn't do a great job then.
No, or you have to be full blown infected.
Yeah, but it was also like it looked for a moment like they weren't gonna like test Ellie because like there's like a brief pause, and then like Joel looks over at her, and then the guy with the gun's like, okay, now her.
Yeah,
and then that's when it starts to pick up, and we're like, oh shit.
The most important takeaway from this scene, which I didn't really realize until Joel addresses it later with his brother Tommy, is that he froze up. Joel froze up, like the dog sniffs him, stands up on his chest, clears him, whatever. And then when they're like, all right, now her, he definitely had another internal freak out where he was like, oh shit, she's about to get ripped to shreds by this dog. I need to do something. But he was frozen, incapable of protecting Ellie, just panicking instead of reacting, which again, at least by his assessment, is not normal behavior for him. Like he's like 5 years ago, he would have been that guy. Like he would have tackled this dog and
he's not that guy, pal.
Exactly. I don't know what his plan would have been here though. It's like there's like 20 people around you on horseback with guns.
There's not much he could do to begin with.
You're gonna take the dog out, they're gonna kill you immediately, dude.
You got the gun on the ground already.
Yeah,
so.
plus like if he does something to protect Ellie from the dog, it immediately is going to make everybody there think Ellie is also infected and they're going to kill them both. So I'm glad he froze. In this case,
it was
the panic might have saved her life. Joel tells the cowboy clan he's just looking for his brother. And that's when Tara from True Blood, known as Maria in this show, she rides up and asks him his name. And during the first watching of the scene, I was like, wait, what is happening? Why this woman riding up and asking him, she's breaking formation basically. But when he says, I'm just looking for my brother, to me, she has to know it's her husband Tommy's brother. Like she has an inkling, right?
Yeah.
Like clearly Tommy has told her. Tommy is her husband. Tommy has told her, like, I've got a brother out there. His name's Joel, and told her stuff about their life together, right? Which we find out later. She has quite a bit of information about Joel. So I think it's safe to say that she knows it's her husband Tommy's brother, and that's why Joel and Ellie are allowed horses and brought into camp. Today's episode is brought to you by our listeners supporting this show on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles in exchange for exclusive bonus ad-free episodes further discussing every show we cover. Right now, each week, we further digest and discuss each episode of The Last of Us, with voicemails being the driving force of each episode from our Bloater Brigade tier. If you want to be able to call into the hotline, you join the Bloater Brigade and also gain access to full video of each Patreon episode as well as our Discord server. If you'd prefer to just listen to our bonus coverage, you join the Clicker Click. And when you join patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles to support our show, you'll immediately gain access to all of our ad-free bonus episodes covering House of the Dragon Season 1, The White Lotus Season 2, and you'll get an ad-free companion podcast for every single episode of HBO's classic crime drama, The Sopranos, friendly to first-timers and repeat watchers alike. When we did this, Barrett was a first-timer. I am a noted repeat watcher of The Sopranos, and we had a blast making our companion podcast for The Sopranos together. All of that when you support OCC by subscribing today on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Thank you so much to the over 1,300 of you that are already there. You are the reason we are able to keep doing this show consistently, even when sponsorships are hard to come by. It means a lot. Go to Patreon, patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles today. So Joel and Ellie ride into Jackson, Wyoming, which is an extremely legit stronghold with a big-ass wall surrounding it. They've got electricity, shops. It's like a full-blown society.
They got a really nice
world.
setup here, it seems like.
It's the best. I wouldn't have left.
Yeah.
Which Joel actually tries to end up staying. Like I have a theory that part of his reason that he decides, Tommy would be better going is because he's like, fuck that. I'm not leaving this place. This rules.
Right, yeah. I mean, they about to have bacon soon.
And then bacon and Christmas trees.
Yeah.
That's
also, how do they
need.
know like it's Christmas? Like, I feel like once like the world like went to shit, like I wouldn't be tracking the days.
Maybe there's
on the calendar.
One guy who had a watch that keeps like the month. You know how some watches have like the month and the day, and he just kept that shit wound up the whole time, so he never lost track of what day it was, and that's what they're able to go off of.
Because like I know like you can tell what season it is, but like I wouldn't know like, oh, today's Christmas or like today's Halloween or anything like that. Like Like,
yeah,
the
but
days would just be a blur at this point.
There's some technology-free way to determine certainly seasons, but also like what day of the year. I'm trying to think back to school when they taught us how the calendar was established, and I can't remember shit.
Then what about leap years? Like, are they keeping track of that too? Or are they like doing daylight savings and all that?
These are all fair questions. If you know how the hell they would have possibly, let's say there wasn't that guy with the watch, like how would they have figured out what day it was? Do you think they just did a ballpark guess? Just decided one day, like, all right, it's March fucking 6th. That's what we're going with.
That's our new year.
We're starting from here. Let's roll. But as soon as they get into Jackson, like literally almost immediately, Joel spots his brother Tommy working on a building. They waste no time here reuniting the Miller boys, as it were. And they are reunited. Joel kind of laughs after they hug about the fact that he came here to save Tommy, and clearly Tommy does not need saving. He's in a much better spot than anyone else we have come across the entire fucking show. Then they're eating to get taken into like one of the restaurants, I guess, that they've got going here in Jackson, and they're eating what Ellie refers to as her first proper meal ever. Because Joel's like, it's been a long time since we had a proper meal. She's like, I don't think I've ever had a proper meal. That's how good this is.
Yeah, no, just 20-year-old Chef Boyardee. That's all she's eating.
That's what she's been going off of. And you have to imagine that the food in Fedra school, which again, I think we'll probably get some insights into next week, wasn't great, right? Nothing in the Boston QZ seems like it was all that good. But while they're eating, Joel is like oddly interested in impressing Tommy and Maria. Like he tells Ellie to mind her manners.
Yeah.
And I thought about this for a while because I was like, what is going on with him here? Why is he being like that? My conclusion is that he is self-conscious of the job he has done as this teenage girl's father figure, basically, right? Like, and that he is responsible for everything she has been exposed to that has made her sort of the hardened little badass that she is. And he wants her to present as well-mannered because he wants these people's help. He wants Tommy's help. He wants Maria's help. And he wants them impressed so that he can get that help. But it was kind of a weird little, almost like a glitch in this conversation with Joel where he does not like that she's like coming off as rough and ill-mannered in any way.
Yeah, and then she has that moment with that random girl.
Yeah, the rando's like behind a pole, getting a look at her.
Yeah, kind of like creeping on her a little bit, and she says, "Well, why didn't she mind her fucking?"
It's like, the fuck are you looking at?
Yeah,
you want to go, bitch?
Right.
Shit was funny. Tommy tells Joel that he and Maria are married. Kade, did you ever watch True Blood on HBO?
Never seen it before. Now.
Okay, it was basically just vampires fucking and fast forward. That was the whole show.
That's the whole show.
It was like they were like, hey, look, people like Twilight a lot. Let's do the HBO version of that.
Right.
And I won't lie to you, it was tight. First few seasons, really, really good TV. It went on too long for sure.
Right.
By the end, it was absurd. I couldn't even tell you what was happening. There was fairies. It was weird. But yeah, the actress who plays Maria, Rutina Wesley is her name. She plays Tommy's wife, Maria, in this episode. She was one of the main characters in True Blood. I have not seen her in a single thing since True Blood. So once again, it pays to be in the HBO family because once you're in an HBO show, it might not be next year, but at some point down the line, it could be 20 years from now, you will get that call and they will ask you to come back and be on some other show. I'm serious. It is a fact. If you join the HBO family, you never leave. So Joel and Ellie are given a tour of Jackson, the town, and Maria explains that they keep this place safe by staying off the radio. They don't advertise what they have, right? They're not coming across strangers and being like, we got electricity, we got fucking hot tubs back here. Also, being in the middle of nowhere helps quite a bit. She's walking them down the road. She's like, there's our multi-faith house of worship. We've got a school, laundry, and their old bank works as the jail, which apparently they haven't needed, which I found to be shocking. This must be a really well-behaved group of people.
Well, it is a communist
society. Yeah, commune. Yeah, but you still would think 300 people, including children, like somebody's going to get shit-faced and fuck up.
Yeah, no drunken, disorderly.
Nobody's needed to go to jail. No. It's amazing. They draw power from the dam as of a couple of years ago, and since then they installed sewage, plumbing, water heaters, and lights. And they have a democratically elected council, which Maria is a part of, that runs the town, serving 300 people and children included. Everyone pitches in. They're living in a communist society, Kade, which when Tommy, somehow he did not realize
he did
this.
not pick up on that.
He had never put it together like, oh my God, I'm a commie now.
Yeah.
And he was clearly upset when Maria points it out. She's like, no, this is a commune. We are literally communists. Yeah. But it's also funny because she just said like it's a democratically elected council. So I don't know if there's like a communist democracy that can exist.
Yeah, kind of just like a blend
it's a
between
hybrid.
the two. Yeah.
No idea. Funny moment though when Tommy like stops in his tracks, like, "Oh my God, I'm a communist."
He's been there for like a couple of years, I think.
Yeah, and
so
I don't know how he wouldn't have figured it out, but you do have to remember Tommy is a military guy, right? He served in like Desert Storm or whatever, and typically, in America, the idea of communism is one of those things that like we fought against as a country back during the Cold War and whatnot. And the spread of communism was this thing that people were very afraid of for a long time. Like it was the enemy of capitalism. So he kind of has that notion inside of him, which is just kind of a cool moment to see him realizing like, oh shit, I am a communist now. Yeah. Joel and Tommy then hit the bar, which is called the Tipsy Bison, to catch up. And Ellie goes with Maria. Tommy and Joel get into a pretty long conversation here where Tommy asks about Tess. And Joel cannot bring himself to tell Tommy that she is dead. He just says she's fine. And I think it's pretty clear that Joel is struggling with the fact that his little brother found a place to be safe and build a real life while Joel is off failing to protect the people he loves the most, something that is extremely triggering to him since the loss of his daughter in episode 1 and is sort of like hanging heavy over his head this whole episode because he's like, it's a thing you have, you have siblings, how it is. It's like not necessarily competitive, but certainly like comparative. Like if you were Joel living the life Joel has been living and, he's sitting back there in the Boston QZ thinking, I got to get out there and save Tommy. He's in trouble. And then you find him.
And he doesn't need to be saved. And
not only does he not need to be saved, he's living the good life. Yeah. Like the best possible version of life in this new world. It would shake you. You'd be shook by that shit.
Do you think he has like any jealousy?
Oh, for sure. I think a certain level. I mean, yeah, it's like when if life takes a turn for you and shit gets rough, and then you've got friends that stay on the free and easy path or whatever. There is a level of jealousy that enters into that equation. Like, why is this shit happening to me? Or why did these bad things happen to me? And he's out here living the good life or whatever. It would definitely weigh in. But yeah, so Joel tells Tommy that Ellie is the daughter of some Firefly muckety muck, he says. He doesn't initially disclose Ellie's importance, which is, it's like he's still feeling Tommy out.
Yeah.
And it is something you'd have to be super careful with. And you haven't seen your brother in a while. You'd want to make sure that you can still trust him before you disclose the most important information in the world, potentially, to him, right? He doesn't know what's going on out here. All he knows is he stopped responding on the radio, right? Which he later assumes is because of Maria.
Right.
And stopped replying to his messages. So he kind of has to play it safe at the beginning and try to feel Tommy out. Tommy tells Joel that the Fireflies have a base that is a week's ride south down at the University of Eastern Colorado. Is that real?
I never
Google it for me while we talk, because my thought was that they made it up. A lot of times TV shows will they'll throw one at you that's not true, like University of Eastern Texas, which is not a thing. But I was curious because like University of Colorado is obviously a thing. I've been to the one in Boulder, nice place, but never heard of the University of Eastern Colorado.
Okay, no, it is not a real university.
Aha. So they made it up just for the show.
Yep.
Tommy does point out that it is severely fucked up between here and there. He says there's infected, there's raiders, that it's not exactly an easy trip. Which again...
It kind of was an easy trip, though.
The River of Death was not a River of Death. And this trip to the University of Eastern Colorado, they don't encounter anything. It's a free fucking walk the whole way there.
It kind of makes me seem like they haven't been to these places in a while. And so like they don't really know if the threats are still there, so they just kind of assume what they know from the past. I'm
curious what our audience, the Clam Fam, the Clicker Click, the Bloater Brigade, we can get into this more later this week on Thursday on Patreon, What was y'all's read here? Why did they keep telling us like, oh, this river, it's the river of death, and then there was no death. Oh, this is a treacherous path from here, from Jackson to the University of Eastern Colorado, and then it wasn't a treacherous path at all. Just curious if anybody had any further insights there. So Joel does tell Tommy, like, it'll be really easy for us together as we take this route, implying that Tommy will join him and Ellie on the journey. And that's when Tommy drops the bomb that he can't go with Joel and Ellie because he has a kid on the way with Maria. And he has to be, as he puts it, more careful with the decisions he makes in his life now because he has a responsibility to his wife and to his unborn child.
And no, this kind of answered your question from the Patreon last week about having kids during the...
Oh, yeah. One of our callers asked if you were in this post-apocalyptic scenario and like, would you... Not only like would you have kids, but like would you even be having sex, or would you be too afraid that you could get somebody pregnant and then there's no medical care, or you'd have to deal with a baby, and like how much harder it would be to stay safe if you had a baby?
But I feel like, I mean, like when you're in this kind of like
if you're in
community,
Jackson?
Then like
you got to repopulate the earth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kade.
And I mean, you saw it like later when they're at the movies or whatever. There's like
Lots of
a bunch of
kids.
kids there. Yeah,
Whole lot of kids. Yeah. Yeah, if you want if you want my answer about whether or not I would take part in the sexy time or have children in a hypothetical post-apocalyptic world, you'll have to go to patreon.com/oystersclamscockles, where both Barrett and I answered that question, and the answers may shock you. They may shock you. So Joel and Tommy, they get into their past a little bit, and Joel's like, all those things that you judge me for, and he's like, they weren't things, man. We murdered people, bro. And we get a little more insight into Joel's dark past and how he survived between 2003 and 2023 and all the things that were unseen by us as an audience.
I don't know, it's kind of hard for me. Like, I just don't see Joel, like, because I'm assuming they're talking about murdering innocent people. And, like, it's just kind of hard for me to, like, see him, like, do that kind of stuff.
I know. I think it's like... Okay, like, you know when they get to Kansas City and those guys spring a trap on them and try to take them out, I think it's that there was a point in the world where after the outbreak happened, for anyone that was trying to survive, it was like Mad Max. Like, you kind of had anybody you came after that wasn't you and your people, you had to go after them and try to take whatever they had, right? Like, if they had food, they had water, they had cars, they had shelter, you had to go get that shit because nobody was going to give it to you. Mm-hmm. And it was sort of every man for himself. And I think Joel, as the leader of their little group, probably they killed a bunch of people, right?
Right.
But I don't necessarily know how, like, innocent anybody was at that point, right? Like, it was probably more of
like,
a kill or be killed scenario.
Do you think, like, so at the beginning when they meet that old couple, do you think in the past he would have killed them?
I mean, that's certainly the implication based on all these different conversations, but that's just like you said, that's why it's difficult for me to see Joel as a guy that would just be like a cold-blooded, ruthless killer going around just offing people for no reason. I don't think that's how it went down. I just think it's that him and Tommy, and everybody for that matter, are having a hard time making sense of that period in the world, like where
kind of like a gray area.
Yeah, where it was just chaos and everybody was having to do what they had to do to try to survive and find their way. But then again, I mean, certainly the implication is that Joel did in fact do fucked up things, like that he did do cold-blooded murder, is what we're led to believe. It just seems hard to believe if you're, one of the people watching this show where we've only seen what seems like a good side of Joel, where he has beneath it all and all the complicated layers of him as an onion, he seems like a good person. Like, he has a good heart. So it's hard to see him doing anything ruthless. But Joel is, speaking of him being a good guy, complicated good guy, because he's not at first supportive of Tommy's impending fatherhood. He says, like, Tommy's like, I'm scared, man, I might not be a good father, which as a new father, I can tell you is definitely a thing that everybody goes through. But Joel's response is, well, guess we'll find out.
Yeah,
and he's like, fuck you, man.
And then when they said they got married earlier, he's like...
He can't even say congrats.
I can't say congrats.
Oh, he's like, Joel say congrats. Congrats. But Tommy says, just because life stopped for you doesn't mean it has to stop for me. And I didn't play this far in the video game. Guarantee that line was pulled straight from the game. because it's just too good. When Joel leaves the Tipsy Bison, he storms out of there. He's pissed off. And then he has immediately another spell of anxiety that leaves him clutching a pole and thinking that he sees his late daughter, Sarah, in a crowd of people. The man is really struggling at this point.
Yeah.
Then Ellie, in the little house that they were assigned, she gets in a shower, and then she finds a note that says, "I'm across the street," that we find out is from Maria, along with a menstrual cup of some kind.
Didn't know what that was.
I'd never seen one of these. Yeah.
So I don't
know what a tampon is. I saw Tiger Woods hand one to Justin Thomas last week.
Yeah.
But I think if Tiger had handed Justin Thomas a menstrual cup, he probably would have been a little bit safer from the cancel culture that's now coming after him, because nobody's seen one of these things. I mean, not if you're a dude. I think it's less common, certainly, and it's not the stereotypical option you think of when it comes to women's hygiene care or whatever. I've been sent to this. Here's what I mean. I've been sent to CVS to buy tampons before. I've never been sent to purchase what I'm calling a menstrual cup. So I hope that's what it's called.
I couldn't even read the pamphlet she gave. It was too hard to read.
I thought about pausing it, but I was like, you know what? I've learned enough about the women's anatomy lately watching a child be born. I'm good. I'm just going to skip through this. Maria gives Ellie a super fucking purple or eggplant colored jacket to wear and tells her that she's like, "Where's my old stuff? I want my old clothing." She's like, "Yeah, we threw it in a pile, like a rag pile. It's gone.
It's gone.
It's used as rags now.
And it's gone."
Yeah. Maria, it turns out, was an assistant district attorney in Omaha, Nebraska pre-outbreak. Ellie tells Maria she's sorry about her kids because she sees that memorial sign above the fireplace with two names on it, Kevin and Sarah. And this is when Maria corrects her and says, "Just kid, Kevin. Sarah was Joel's daughter." And honest to God, I hadn't really thought about this, but I knew it was one of those things like Joel doesn't like to talk about Tess. Certainly he wouldn't like to talk about Sarah. But I think in the back of my mind, I had just kind of assumed that maybe he would have looped Ellie in at some point. Like, I used to have a daughter. She died on Outbreak Day. He had never told her. They have never spoken about Sarah. Ellie has no idea that this dude used to be a father, that he lost his teenage daughter that was about Ellie's age on Outbreak Day. Not a clue. And it's shocking to her to find out that he had a daughter he lost. So Maria goes on to attempt to warn Ellie about Joel. She's like, "I think it's pretty clear that there are things about Joel that you don't know." And Ellie's like, "What? That he killed people? I definitely know that. And also, Tommy was with him. Are you worried about Tommy?" And Maria kind of pins it all on Joel. She's like, "Tommy was following Joel. It wasn't like his idea, I guess," which seemed like a bit of a cop-out from Maria. But I get it. It is what it is. You defend your own people. But she does tell her, Maria says, "Be careful who you put your faith in." And the quote that really stuck with me was, "The only people who can betray us are the ones we trust," which is true, but dark and heavy. Then they go to the movies where, if I'm not mistaken, okay, did you recognize the movie?
No, but I looked it up today and yeah.
It's the one I put?
Yeah,
okay,
that's the one.
1977's American romantic comedy drama, The Goodbye Girl, which I am completely unfamiliar with.
Idea. I thought they were going to go with a Christmas movie because it was Christmas time, but I don't think that's a Christmas movie.
It wasn't described as one when I looked it up, but their options must have been pretty limited because what the fuck is The Goodbye Girl? And I'm sure somebody's going to bite my head off like, it's one of the greatest romantic comedy dramas ever made. But I feel like I would have heard of it. I do a TV and film podcast. You're listening to it right now. So, yeah, that was weird. The fact that I had to Google it was frustrating. I had to take a line out of it, plug that line into Google.
I saw the character's name.
That's what I went with too, yeah.
I'm like, all right, let me see who this guy is and see what he's in. But
yeah, that was it. Tommy finds Joel working on his busted ass boots in some kind of a tool shed and provides him with a new pair of boots and apologizes sort of for their tiff in the bar. And Joel asks Tommy if the ride to the university is a suicide mission. Because remember, Tommy was like, "It's treacherous. There's raiders. There's all kinds of shit. It's rough." And Tommy assures him that everyone he's had go that way has made it back. So at this point, he's sort of reversing course.
Maybe it's not as treacherous as he makes it seem at first.
Maybe he was trying to scare him out of going and see if he could get him to stay, but certainly in this conversation, he makes it seem like it's easy as pie. He's like, yeah, no, literally everyone I know that's ever gone that way has made it back. So, and he tells him like, no, you would be fine. Like, it's dangerous, but nothing you can't handle. So then Joel reveals to Tommy what is special about Ellie, that she's immune, that he saw her get, because at first Tommy's like, what the fuck? He's like about to like run out of there and go shoot her. He's like, no, I saw her get bit myself. That was months ago. She is legitimately immune. And Tommy sits down and says, from the beginning, he wants to hear Joel's story about his interactions with this girl from the beginning. Joel tells him that Marlene hired them to smuggle Ellie to some fireflies. Things went bad. Tess got bit. And Joel explains that basically age and life have caught up with him. He's too slow, too fucking deaf, and he no longer trusts himself to protect Ellie, which in fairness is fair.
Yeah, kind of true.
This is like multiple 3 moments, you could pick out of the last few episodes where he has basically by and large failed, as he puts it even. He goes on to tell the story about how he didn't hear that one guy come and Ellie had to save his life, right? And he tells Joel that he tells Tommy rather, that he's been having these moments of intense fear, which again, I would diagnose as panic attacks personally, and that he's like, he says he's having dreams every night where he wakes up in the morning and he's lost something, that he's failing in his sleep, that it's all he does. It's all he's ever done, he says. It feels like he's been pretty hard on himself, which I can relate to. But the only moment that gave me some clarity to this whole like dreaming at night thing was when he and Ellie get into their little tiff, and which we'll get to in a few minutes, and Joel goes back to his room, and he has like this vision of him and Sarah decorating a Christmas tree. So I think the dream thing is that at night he's having dreams about his old life, right? Pre-outbreak, him and his daughter. And when he wakes up, then he feels like he's lost something because she's not there, right?
And he's probably having like dreams of like that night too, and just like replaying that scenario over in his head, and just like saying like he's failed, like
over and over. He feels like he's failing over and over because he's probably reliving that trauma in his sleep over and over, which is certainly a thing for anybody who's been through a traumatic experience. Anybody who has PTSD, they'll tell you like your dreams will torture you, man. It's and it's not a fun way to go. Like even in early 2020, pre-outbreak in the real world, before COVID, man, I was going through a divorce, and I would have these like, I wore a Whoop back then, one of those little fitness bands that like tracks your heart rate in your sleep, right? And I would wake up in the morning just drenched in sweat, and I would check my Whoop band, like the app that coincides with it, and my heart rate was like spiking through the roof in the middle of the night, like several times a night while I was asleep, and I was having like panic attacks in my sleep because I was having dreams like processing what had happened in my life. And it sucked, and I stopped wearing the stupid fucking Whoop band because I was like, I don't need this shit. Like, I don't need it to tell me like something that I'm already experiencing. I can't do anything about this. So, right, it was just giving me more anxiety looking at what was happening to me when I was sleeping that I didn't have control over. So, I got rid of that thing. But point is, Joel is suffering hardcore at this point with like, as they discuss after the episode, it's the fear of reliving the same thing. That now that he's found this little girl, Ellie, who he sees almost like as a daughter, he can't wrap his head around the possibility of losing her the way he lost Sarah. So he's just ridden with fear, which also, as they put it, like, and as we've discussed on this podcast, before you have, like with Frank and Bill tells Frank, before I found you, or I was never scared until I found you, until I met you, right? And it's easy to go about your life, not necessarily recklessly, but without fear, before you have bigger responsibilities, bigger fish to fry. In Tommy's case in this episode, a wife and a kid, right? Like that would put some element of fear on you. But in Joel's case, when it was just him, it was easier. And now he's got this little girl, and it's hard again because he's got that fear that he's carrying with him everywhere they go. So Joel wants Tommy to take Ellie to the University of Eastern Colorado that doesn't exist in the real world. It exists on the show. But he says, Like basically like, I know you left because you wanted to make right on all the things that we had done, right? And get away from me. Well, here's your chance to bring your kid into a better world. He says, you're younger than me, you're strong, you'll come back, you have to take her. And it just seems like Joel doesn't trust anyone else with what Ellie potentially is. He says that if anybody else sees those bites on her, they'll shoot her. Like, you've got to do this for me. It's the last thing I'll ever ask of you. And Tommy, not reluctantly, but you know, he just told us, like, I can't do this type of shit anymore.
Yeah, he kind of like forces it on him almost.
You couldn't say no.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't, if somebody, like, look, I can't do this. She's going to die if I do it. She's the only hope that we're aware of for humanity. I need you to do it. You would feel pretty obligated to say yes if you were younger, stronger, more fit. And as Tommy puts it, everybody he knows that's gone has made it back.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do it, right? So Tommy says he'll take her out at dawn. Today's episode is also brought to you by Liquid IV. If you're trying to improve your health, hydration is a great place to start, and Liquid IV is the hydration brand that fuels your well-being. In just one stick, you get 5 essential vitamins and 2 times faster hydration than you would with water alone. Use it first thing in the morning or before a workout or when you feel run down or after a long night out, or especially like great for long flights where you need to stay hydrated. I guarantee everyone in the post-apocalyptic world of infected wishes they had some Liquid IV to bolster their hydration. We have a massive supply of Liquid IV here at the Bolin Media office, just in case the apocalypse occurs, which keeps producer Kade and I the most hydrated people possibly in the entire world. Not only is Liquid IV incredibly effective as a hydration tool, it tastes phenomenal as well with a great variety of flavors like Concord grape, lemon lime, pina colada, tropical punch, watermelon, strawberry, and passion fruit. 1 stick of Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water hydrates you 2 times faster and more efficiently than water alone. It contains 5 essential vitamins, B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C, with 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks, made with premium ingredients, non-GMO, free from gluten, dairy, and soy. And on top of all that, Liquid IV is on a mission to change the world for the better. To date, Liquid IV has donated over 25 million servings in 50-plus countries around the world. So grab your Liquid IV in bulk nationwide at Costco, or you can get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code ROSS at checkout. That's my name, ROSS. 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code ROSS at liquidiv.com. So after his conversation with Tommy, Joel goes up to Ellie's room in this little house that they've been put in. And that's where he finds her, kind of inappropriately, reading some little girl's personal diary, which was funny.
Yeah. Yeah, but she's just talking about like what like girls back in the day used to like complain about and stuff.
Yeah, I think
it's like
the irony being that it was probably a girl around Ellie's age, right?
Right.
And she's reading her diary, and she's saying like, "What? This was all you had to do? Was like bitch about clothing and boys and shit." Yeah. But still, you shouldn't read dead people's diaries, just as a general rule of thumb. I feel like there's some bad diary karma that comes with that. But Ellie asks Joel why he's still here. She says, if you're going to ditch me, which is when it occurs to all of us in the audience and Joel, like, oh my God, she heard that fucking conversation? Like, what?
Yeah, that really threw me off.
Yeah, me too.
When she said that. And like, I know when she was watching the movie, she saw Tommy leave, and I think she like ends up following.
She picked up on something,
because then like during Joel and Tommy's conversation, you see her like walking through the town.
Yeah.
But you never see her like
go there specifically.
Yeah, so that I wasn't really sure.
No, but you're right. That was exactly when they set it up. She's watching the movie. You can tell she's kind of nonplussed with the movie. She's just kind of like, what are we doing here? And she sees Tommy interacting with Maria. She gets suspicious, and then we see her walking down the street but don't know where she goes. And obviously the implication here is that she followed Tommy to some degree and eavesdropped, as it were, on their conversation. So she overheard them. Joel tries to explain, but Ellie isn't having it. She brings up Sarah, and Joel does not take it well. It reminded me of the moment in Bill and Frank's house when he tells her, like, you do not bring up Tess, ever. We are never discussing Tess ever again. And what I say goes, like, Sarah falls into that same bucket, but he didn't know she would ever find out about Sarah. So he kind of freaks out, and Ellie says, I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel, but I've lost people too. And Joel responds, you have no idea what loss is. And Ellie says, everybody I have cared for has either died or left me. Everybody fucking except for you. She pushes him, says, so don't tell me. I'd be safer with somebody else, because the truth is I would just be more scared. And Joel tells Ellie that come dawn, they are going their separate ways. And again, as somebody who hasn't played this point in the video game, I look forward to playing the game as soon as season 1 is over, part 1 anyway. I didn't realize this, but this is apparently one of the more famous cutscenes in the video game.
Yeah.
That Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal felt a lot of pressure around executing on this one scene, which honestly I wouldn't have picked out of the episode as like, oh, I bet that was one of like the heaviest moments in the game. You can see why in hindsight. Like it,
yeah, that scene was super heavy.
It was, but it just kind of surprised me that after the episode they got into like and this was like arguably the most famous scene from the video game, and we really had to nail it. I was just like, that scene, really? Fuck, okay. But it was heavy. It was very good. It was very intense. It's hard to watch Joel sort of mishandle these situations because she's 14 years old, man. Like,
yeah,
pull your fucking self together.
When he says you have no idea what loss is, like he doesn't like.
He's just assuming.
Yeah, and like he's been with her when she has lost people that she's cared about with Tess and Henry and Sam.
He's kind of unwilling to admit that anybody else could have the same level of suffering as him, right?
He just like kind of wants to have his own little pity party.
Exactly. It is a bit of a pity party, and that is something that I think is pretty typical of people who go through hard shit. It's difficult to imagine that anybody else in the world could understand your level of pain, when in reality there's a shit ton of people that can, regardless.
Especially in this
time. What the fuck, in a post-apocalyptic world when you're all like battling a zombie apocalypse?
Lost people, yeah.
Come on, Joel, you got to get real. Which I think is the thing that he does come to terms with after their conversation. Like, he ends up going back to his room, and well, let's just get into it. The next morning, Tommy comes to take Ellie to the stables and get going, and that's where, to both of their surprise, they find Joel, who says that initially he came down to steal a horse and head out, but that was 30 minutes ago, and that Ellie deserves a choice. And before he can even finish his next sentence, Ellie chooses Joel. She's like, all right, you're coming with me, bitch. But I think my read is that, like, when he went back to his room and we see that moment where he's like envisioning him and Sarah decorating the Christmas tree, I think he's processing it all and probably realizing what you and I are pointing out, that he has been throwing himself a bit of a pity party. This is a 14-year-old with potentially the fate of humanity on her shoulders. Maybe he could have a little bit more goddamn empathy for like what she's gone through too, right? Not just himself. But yeah, Tommy and Joel, they end up hugging here in a way that really, even like first watch through, I was like, that felt like a last time hug, like we're never gonna see each other again.
We're coming back to Jackson, or you just don't think?
I don't think Joel and Tommy ever see each other again. I don't think they're gonna ever see each other again. Like that moment. I mean, he ends up like taking his gun. Tommy says, there's a place for you here, both of you. And Joel says, I'm counting on it. It was just kind of a lot of foreshadowing, like, shit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if this man is ever coming back to this place. Now, I think it's possible that Ellie will. But especially what we see at the end of this episode, I'm feeling less and less confident that Joel is going to make it out of this fucking thing alive. Like, he's at the I'll save it. I'll save my last take on Joel for the end of this pod. But they get on the road to the university, and Joel lets Ellie do some like target practice with a rifle, which I was surprised by how quickly they mended things. Like they leave Ellie's bedroom seeming further apart than they've ever seemed, and then 5 minutes into the trip, they're like stopping for some fun old rifle shooting target practice together.
Yeah, no, they seem to make up pretty
quickly, and I think it was just a callback to how similar they are as people, and that they would both enjoy this target practice very much together, which is like not a thing you would expect from a mid-50s grown man and a 14-year-old girl, but that's how similar they are, right?
And like throughout like this episode and like even past episodes, she's always like asking to like learn skills, and like she wants to hunt, she wants to learn how to like dress a rabbit or whatever, or undress
dress a rabbit,
just like all these like survival skills. And like I feel like being Joel, having someone that also knows this kind of stuff would be a huge help for him.
Yeah, you'd think it'd be incredibly advantageous. When she saves his life back in Kansas City, and then he finally tells her like, all right, I'll teach you some pistol shit real quick, like some general safety shit. And she already knew some of it, first of all. But I thought that was really going to ramp up their relationship in terms of him teaching her things. And it didn't really. The only other moment where we get information that he's taught her is when he falls asleep during the camp out earlier in the episode, and she's like, I did everything you taught me. I found the high ground, blah, 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 blah. Like, I did all those things.
Right.
And she's like, and I'm a fucking natural, man. Like, I'm really good at this. And so he's been pretty reluctant to go all in on teaching her like full-blown combat skills, right?
But like, if I have this worry in the back of my mind that like I can't protect this person, then I better give her the skills so she can like protect herself. And she even talks about like how she's like, no, if she loses Joel, she doesn't know what to do.
And she's fucked. Yeah, good point. I think that's probably the breaking point for him, where he's like, all right, we should probably stop and do some rifle shit here. But they also share more with each other. Like they end up, again, because the treacherous road between Jackson and the university does not end up being all that treacherous. They have time for like small talk, and Joel tells Ellie that he was a contractor before the outbreak, and she's like, the contractor.
The contractor.
That's pretty cool. And he says, yeah, we were cool. Everybody loved contractors, which is just a fucking hilarious. Like, obviously, not everybody loves contractors. It's not like a job you think of as like the best.
Yeah.
Oh, contractors are the fucking best. I think probably it's probably the opposite. People get frustrated with contractors because things don't get done as quickly as they want them to get done, right? Joel also teaches Ellie the rules of football, which they had to have gotten pretty fucking far down the list of things before he was like, and now, American football. Let's talk about how many downs there are, how the positions work, like all that shit. Just the inference being that they had a lot of time to talk, a lot of time to go through stuff here. And when they get to the home of the Bighorns at the University of Eastern Colorado, there is no sight of fireflies or anyone, really. It seems pretty abandoned from the jump. And my first thought was like, these goddamn fireflies, man. Like, they're super unreliable. They were supposed to be at like the old town hall. Everybody was fucking dead. They're supposed to be at the University of Eastern Colorado, the home of the Bighorns. There's nobody fucking here. It just pissed me off. And like, it was such a video game moment too, where like in a video game, they're like, and now you're going to go to this place and that's where you're going to find these people. And then you get there and they're not fucking there. So you have to go do another mission or whatever. But yeah, Ellie asks about college, and there was a cool line. Joel says, I think it was just as much about partying and finding themselves as anything, figuring out what they wanted to do with their lives. And being like, what am I, 13 years removed from college at this point, 12 years removed from college at this point. I graduated at 23. I took my time. I always, like, even while I was there, I remember being like, what the fuck is this? Like, I'm not learning any life skills. Like, I learned some generally, like, it was a good experience education-wise. But more than that, it was a great experience life lessons-wise.
Yeah, I was about to say that quote kind of like nails it on the head.
It does.
Like the whole college experience.
Because it is a lot more about finding yourself, finding what kind of person you are, what you want to do with the rest of your life, than it is about, I guess, as people always joke, and the internet has memed ad nauseum at this point, like, they never even taught us how to do our taxes. Like, they taught us insane, fucking idiotic shit that I will never use again in my life, mostly in the realm of math because I'm a creative. But, like, that stuff did nothing. Why did no one teach me how to do my taxes? Like, that's one of the big jokes about American college, right? Is you don't get practical knowledge. You don't get the skill set you need to go be a functioning adult in society. It's more of the way Joel puts it, where it's just as much about partying and finding yourself as anything else. He also tells her he no longer wants a sheep ranch, but in what was probably the most shocking moment of the episode, that when he was a kid, he wanted to be a singer. And
yeah, that was
seemingly implying that, in fact, he's shifting course. And now, if he survives all this and this works, he wants to try to sing.
Does Jackson have a recording studio, you think?
It's the next step. After they get that bacon, they got to put in a recording studio.
Yeah.
And then we can go podcast there as well. Then they find some firefly signage. But as they approach that area of the campus where the fireflies are supposed to be, there's guard stations out front, but they're abandoned because, of course, they are. There's nobody inside. They tie up their horse and head in to investigate, and it's pretty clear that everybody left in kind of a hurry. Like, there's paperwork scattered all over the place. There's, like, doctor shit thrown all over the place.
But, like, I don't know why, because you don't see
a bunch of bodies.
Any reason for them to do that.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing here. Like, it doesn't seem like they got attacked, and that's why they had to leave. It doesn't seem like there was an infected horde, and that's why they had to leave, because there would be leftovers, there'd be bodies, there'd be infected left behind. There's just monkeys, right?
Right.
So it seems like it was some type of a strategic, I mean, as Joel puts it, when they find the map where it It seems to indicate everybody's going to Salt Lake City in Utah. And he says maybe to get ahead of the weather, maybe for better facilities.
Probably going to the All-Star game.
Yeah, from this past I thought it was funny that I was like, damn, man, Utah's having a fucking weekend right now. The NBA All-Star game was in Salt Lake City, and then they get the shout out on The Last of Us as well. But when they're talking through the map about Salt Lake City is when we hear this small group of raiders coming up on their building. And just to reiterate, again, the treacherous nature of this potential mission, like even when the raiders come up, I'm like, it's like 4 or 5 guys. Who gives a fuck?
They weren't very intimidating.
Yeah, they can handle these
They just
morons.
had like baseball bats and crowbars and stuff.
Right.
I'm like, nah.
So I wasn't that freaked out here. And then Joel and Ellie sneak out the back of the building. They head for their horse, and a dude jumps Joel. Now, this was probably the most confusing moment of the episode for me because Joel handles this guy fairly easily. The dude swings this big stick at him, right? Joel stops him immediately, turns him around, and snaps his fucking neck. I watched
He
this
also
scene.
headbutts him, too, and I don't know why he did that because, I mean, first off, no one ever wins with a headbutt.
And you're having dizzy spells, man. Maybe don't.
Yeah, and he's
headbutt.
also really old now.
Yeah.
And like you said, like he's not the same guy anymore.
Maybe it was his like go-to move, and it was instinct, you know. He just
but
kicked
surely
in.
he's got to feel that one.
Well, he feels the shiv in his fucking stomach.
Yeah.
Which my point was like, I don't know when this guy. I watched the scene twice after, like the initial watch. I rewatched this specific scene twice more, and I do not understand when this guy got the shiv out and into him.
Yeah, so I didn't notice that. Like, didn't really put it all together the first time. Now I watched it the second time and like just watched it really closely, and then I saw the shiv. I'm like, when did he do that?
Do not know.
Because he swung the bat or whatever.
And pretty quickly, Joel gets him turned around. And he doesn't have the opportunity. I was like, it must be when he's choking him out. Like the guy must stab down into him.
Yeah.
But no, it had to have been before that based on the speed that takes place. So it just a strange moment there where it doesn't really matter. It's not like I was like, this episode's fucked as a result of this or anything. It's also the first shiv we've seen where this is one of the main weapons in the video game that you're using pretty constantly. You're using a shiv to kill off either members of Fedra or raiders or clickers because you don't want to make noise, and this is the quietest way to kill people. And you keep having to like re-up on shivs because they don't last long. You get like 3 shanks before they're broken or something. But they get on their horse really quickly and bail as these other dipshit raiders attempt to chase them down.
I was so confused, like what they were doing there. Like
no idea.
Yeah.
They're just my thing was like, okay, this group would not have made it this far.
Yeah, that's what I was
they
thinking.
let one guy split off and go attack them by himself. He gets his fucking neck snapped like in a 90s action
They're like
movie.
so unprepared for
Yeah, it was weird.
everything. Yeah.
Also, just like scientifically, I'm pretty sure I remember learning that it's damn near impossible to snap somebody's neck like that. Like to just like snap a human being's neck with your bare hands, especially when you're like a nearing elderly aged man who's having serious
Probably
health
doesn't
issues.
have that kind of strength
Yeah, I don't
anymore.
know, maybe 5 years ago, but not at this point. They ride off though. And some distance outside the town, Ellie declares that they are no longer being followed. She thinks that they're safe. And right when she says that, which I thought was interesting, it's almost like he held on long enough to know she was safe, and then Joel collapses and falls off the horse. Ellie obviously freaks out, says, I can't fucking do this without you. I don't know where the fuck I'm going, what the fuck I'm going to do. And they leave us with this cliffhanger of whether or not Joel is going to survive, which leads us to the question, is Joel dead? I have a lot to say here. So I don't think so, all right? Because that would have been such a muted death for one of our 2 main characters. It happened so quick, came out of nowhere. He just like I said, he gets stabbed in a scene where I don't even understand how that stab got executed. He falls off the horse. He doesn't get to say anything. It would just lack what I think is deserving in a Joel death scene.
Yeah, for a main character, yeah. No,
So-
I thought the same.
And it's also that my guess here is also based on the fact that when we see like the next time on the Last of Us teaser, episode 7, which is next week, appears it will be all flashback to Ellie's experience in the Fedra school and getting bit for the first time in the mall. Because remember, she told us it happened in the old mall in the QZ that was boarded up. Nobody's supposed to go there. Well, we see that's where she's going next episode. And I had a feeling that we would get this story at one point, but I guessed that it would be in a cold open, that we would go back to flashback to Ellie's original bite scene. It looks like we're getting a whole episode around Ellie's experience at the Fedra school, Ellie's experience making this friend that takes her to the mall, that ends up being a Firefly. They end up fucking around. She ends up getting bit. She ends up discovering she's, immune, and Marlene finds her. And my guess is that it will be revealed that Joel is alive in episode 8. Now, they're either going to make us wait through episode 7 and give us no Joel information at all, or it might be the end of episode 7. Like at the very end, we get some present day scene where we see him waking up or something. But I'd be shocked if that was the end of Joel. Like if Joel is going to die, I don't think it happens in episode 6. Just doesn't make sense strategically or from a storytelling standpoint, right? Like he deserves more.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I think episode 7 might be just like Ellie nursing Joel back to health, and maybe she maybe opens up to Joel about her past. Has
some flashbacks that are her remembering what happened with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be very clear from the start that Joel will be okay, or but I don't know.
It was a lot. I mean, getting you. Look, here's the other thing. Bill in episode 3, Bill and Frank, right? Frank wakes up in the middle of the night. Bill's out in the middle of the fucking street, inexplicably standing in the middle of the street fighting these raiders, and he gets shot in the side because Frank distracts him like an ass. And he's on that table bleeding, and I'm like, oh, this guy's toast. How do you survive a gunshot wound in this age?
Mm-hmm.
He was fine, right? He did survive. And if he could survive that gunshot wound, I got no reason to believe Bill can't survive this shiv to the side.
Joel, yeah.
I'm sorry, that Joel can't survive this shiv to the side. Thank you, Kade.
Yeah. Also, aren't you supposed to leave, knives in?
I'm pretty sure. You're not supposed to just pull that shit out
immediately. I'm like, what are you doing?
Something I watched recently, actually. I finished another post-apocalyptic show, Station 11, over the weekend, and there's a point where somebody gets stabbed, and then that person that got stabbed pulls the knife out, and another person goes, I don't think you're supposed to do that, man. And that guy bleeds out and dies as a result of it. But it would just be a shocking move if that was it. We just move forward. No more Joel. Ellie's all by herself now, just like that. I think there would need to be more build-up. So curious to see how this goes.
Mm-hmm.
How episode. I'm really excited for episode. It's probably the most excited I've been for an episode based on the next time on The Last of Us footage the whole season, because I was hoping we would get these Fedra school scenes. And it looks like they get really into it, man. She's having a conversation with an officer who's like, if you crush it, you can be a Fedra officer one day.
I'm curious to see if they show them at a gun range or something, because Ellie still does not know how to shoot at all. She I don't know if she's being taught by stormtroopers, but even when she's on the horse shooting at the guy, she's not hitting anything.
No. The only person she's ever hit was that dude point blank when he's got his back turned to her and not moving.
Yeah. So, very curious to see if they go into that a little bit more. But
yeah, she blasphemed Tommy's gun and said that his scope didn't work and the gun was broken when her and Joel are doing target practice out there on their ride to the university, and Joel immediately dead ass center of the letter H in the word asshole.
Yeah, right in the asshole of the asshole.
Yeah, he crushes it. So clearly the gun was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, going to be exciting to see how this goes from here. We only have 3 episodes left, right? 7, 8, and 9. 7, at least it's been impressed upon us, will be mostly flashback. So that leaves 8 and 9 for the rest of this season 1, part 1 of the video game story. And I think there's going to be a lot to unpack before it's all said and done. So this is going to get crazy here with the last few. Very stoked. Again, to support our show and get even more coverage of The Last of Us, as well as all the things I mentioned at the top of or in the middle of the episode, our Sopranos podcasts, House of the Dragon Season 1 bonus coverage, and the White Lotus Season 2 bonus coverage. Go to patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles, and you'll get additional exclusive ad-free episodes each week, further digesting each episode of The Last of Us, driven by hotline calls from our listeners. So we take calls the whole episode long. We answer questions. We discuss theories. And it's a lot of fun. If you join right now, you'll gain access to the entire backlog. So all of the other bonus episodes of The Last of Us, you'll get to watch those, enjoy them, and or listen to them if you're in the Click or Click. Only the Bloater Brigade can watch. But go today, patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Go to bowlinmedia.com/shop to get yourself some OCC merch, including the Oysters, Clams, and Cockles hat I am wearing. We've got Succession-themed stuff, House of the Dragon-themed stuff, White Lotus-themed stuff. We're going to work on getting y'all some The Last of Us-themed merchandise as well in the coming weeks. So you got that to look forward to, bowlinmedia.com/shop. Follow us on social media at Kade Orris to follow producer Kade on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok? Is your TikTok
not
different?
TikTok. Yeah, TikTok's different. I think it's, actually I have no idea. I think it's Kade Orris 08 maybe.
Just search Kade Orris on TikTok, try to find it. As I said at the top of the episode, producer Kade is the guy who takes care of all of our video for the new studio with 3 separate cameras. He edits the shit out of it after the fact to make your experience on youtube.com/oysters, clams, and cockles as good as it could possibly be. So throw Kade a follow. We appreciate him and his hard work very much here at Bowlin Media. And if you have not already, even if you don't want to watch our episodes, I get it. I'm a listener when it comes to podcasts. I always do the audio. I'm not a video guy, but a lot of people in this day and age love watching their shows. If you want to watch, go to youtube.com/@oysters, clams, and cockles for full video in our brand new studio that was revamped right before we started coverage of The Last of Us with this Italian brick and this these wood panels that I flew in from a medieval church in Belgium. Priceless. They're priceless. We spent priceless amounts of money on these the studio overhaul. So get in there, youtube.com/@oysters, clams, and cockles to watch the video that producer Kade Orris is making for you each and every week. And even if you don't want to watch, just go subscribe. It supports the show, youtube.com/@oysters, clams, and cockles. If you would, and you have not ever left us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever platform it is that you take in our show, please do. Give us 5 stars, write a little review. We appreciate you. It means a lot. Also helps us spread the word, go up the charts, and gets more people into the Clam Fam, the Click or Click, the Bloater Brigade. Follow me, Ross Bolin, at WR Bolin on Twitter and Instagram. Also, the show, OCC, is on TikTok, at Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. We're on Instagram, at Oysters, Clams, Cockles, and on Twitter, at Clams and Cockles, where you can catch clips from each and every one of our shows, even if you don't want to watch the full YouTube video. You can get little clips from the show so you can see the studio, see Barrett and I, or in this case, Kade and I, each and every week. And yeah, that'll do it. We'll be back on Thursday on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Barrett will be with me for the hotline call episode, allegedly. If all goes well and the outbreak dies down and he can return safely from Mexico. But we're looking forward to it. Thank you to everybody who's already on Patreon and the Bloater Brigade and the Click or Click for supporting us. Thank you to Kade Orris for joining me today, stepping in for Mr. Dudley. Did a phenomenal job. Give him a round of applause, folks, in your car, in your living room, wherever you are. He clapped for himself, which is important to do as well. Give yourself credit, too. Until next time, Clam Fam, if you're lost in the darkness, look for the light.